I leaned against my motorcycle, a matte black Kawasaki Vulcan S with black saddlebags, and stared at the sunset. Brilliant orange clouds pirouetted across the sky. Parked just outside a coffee bar called Java Dive, next to an ugly, beat-up old truck covered in stickers, I enjoyed a quiet moment. I've learned to travel light. I've found that I don't need a lot of stuff, only what fits in the saddlebags. I've been on the road a year, though I've owned the bike nearly 2 years. The wild music of the local steakhouse blared in the air, and I heard the whoops and hollers of the people inside, having a good time. My phone rang. Dad? Can't I ever escape him? My skin crawled, and the depression threatened to return. Good times are rare around me. Name's Rodney Tullum. Dad's from New Mexico. Mom's from Georgia. Why they ended up in Connecticut is beyond me. Together, they ran the Tullum Investment Group, one of the biggest brokerages on the East Coast. Both Mom and Dad played the stock market like a concert pianist. Thing is, they are richer than rich and aren't afraid to flaunt it. They married young, made their fortune, and never planned to have kids. I was the accident. Mom was 39 then, Dad 41. Very conservative and very traditional. They've often been mistaken as my grandparents. What they never realized was that their scared little boy, who they relegated to the boarding schools and nannies, had paid attention. Though our philosophies about life dramatically differed, they weren't the only ones who had made money. They just never paid attention to the important things, like, I'm gay. I'd never come out. Or that I'm a partner with an online collectible store. Here I am, 22 years old, and I don't trust my parents. I knew I shouldn't have answered my phone, that I should avoid my parents at all costs. But instead, I gave in to the fear, and I answered the phone. It's been months since you lowered yourself to talk to your son, I said. What do you need, Dad? I raised you not to be rude. Where are you? Dad commanded. Not far from Vegas. Why? I responded. I need you home this weekend, he said. It surprised me that Dad had actually called and not his secretary. Dad didn't like dealing with little people or poor people like me or his parents. I haven't seen my grandparents or aunts or uncles or cousins since I was 12. Here we go again, I thought to myself, but only said, why? Dad paused before saying, we haven't seen you for months. We miss you. That's a lie, I blurted out, and then added, what's the real reason? Trying to control my life again? It's why I left. Dad paused again, and then, almost nicely said, we want you back here to take a few family pictures. Maybe a few pictures of us as a family going to church. I'm hoping to surprise your mother for her birthday. Another lie. Knowing my dad, something was cooking behind the scenes. A small part of me got annoyed. After all these months of being on the road, and my family called me now, why hadn't they called or texted sooner? Better question. Mom and Dad weren't church people, so when had they gotten religion? This didn't make sense. When I didn't respond, Dad blew a breath out and continued. If you won't do it for me, do it for your mother. She wants to see you again. We'll have a party. Your mom loves to throw parties, especially dinner parties. It will let her show off some new recipes. I groaned. Mom doesn't cook. Their personal chef, Saul, will cook whatever Mom found to perfection. I'll even buy you the plane ticket, Dad said, so you can be back here this weekend. I'll arrange everything. You won't have to do anything except show up. Between her clubs and charities and all her friends, Mom is just as busy as you are, Dad, I said. And you avoided parties as often as you could. I'm not believing a word of this. What's really going on? I want you here. It will take me at least 3 days to drive, and all for a picture? Seriously? I gotta go, I said, and ended the call. The crispy, meaty smells of the steakhouse invited me over, and while I walked over, I avoided thinking of Dad and Mom and why I had left. Friday nights at a good steakhouse jump with energy, and the steakhouse in the Butte kept up with the best. Loud country music twanged from a live band. Dozens of people danced in rows, kicking up their heels and hollering their joy. The deep, meaty smells of barbecued chicken and steak filled the air, along with the yeasty smells of beer and fresh-baked bread. I had to wait 10 minutes for a table. Good thing I came early. It's easy to tell how good a place is by the size of the line, and it wouldn't be long before the wait time reached an hour. As soon as I sat down, I ordered a Corona and held the chill drink as I scanned the crowd. The odds of meeting anyone I knew remained remote, just the way I liked them. The waiter returned, a cute guy named Raoul, who I would lay odds was gay, but he also wore a wedding band, so no action there. Took my order. Southern fried catfish with grilled onions and mushrooms, a side of mashed potatoes and gravy, steamed cauliflower, and a large slice of jalapeno cornbread. A new line dance started. While I waited for dinner, I joined in. Funny thing about line dances, you don't need a partner. I joined the second line, next to a guy with long blonde hair, a crisp white long-sleeved hoodie that must be fresh off the rack, black jeans that hugged his body in all the right places, forcing me to stare just a little. And I don't know what cologne he wore, but he smelled great. This must be his first line dance, because he didn't know the moves, and often turned left when he should have turned right. I danced on his left, and we bumped more than once. Each time I laughed, then he laughed. Truth be told, I didn't mind bumping into him at all. As the dance ended, another began. I took a chance and asked, "Guys like you don't often dance alone. Need someone to talk to? Care to join me at my table? I'll buy you a beer. Name's Rodney." He didn't immediately say anything. Maybe he thought it was a line. Didn't seem like much of a line, just an honest invitation. His reply surprised me. "You don't want to get to know me. I'm trouble," he said. A serious look creased his eyes. I gave him a shrug and said, "A mysterious man on the dance floor who owns a dark secret? You have intrigued me now." Now it was his turn to shrug, but his mouth hinted of a microscopic smile, and he said, "I'm Derrik. Don't say I didn't warn you. I have a jealous ex." We went back to my table for a couple more Coronas, and he ordered a porterhouse steak and a baked potato with cheddar cheese, sour cream, bacon, and chives. The beers relaxed us, and Derrik opened up. Or maybe he just needed someone to listen to him. Not a problem. I like listening to stories. He took a long sip of his beer and began, "I'm from Canada, a little place called Bedford Park." "Bedford Park? Where's that?" I asked. "It's part of Toronto." "Okay," I said. "How did you meet?" 6 months ago. I had just turned 21. Ash was 35, Derrik said, staring at his beer. "My friends took me to a club. My first time. He was sophisticated. I was naive. Ash bought me a drink, and 6 months later I flew 3,600 kilometers and moved in here with him, here in Dead Man's Butte. Worst decision ever." "What did your family think?" I asked, holding the cold mug. Derrik snorted and said, "They loved Ash in spite of the age difference. He helped Dad make a fortune on the stock market, and they want me to get back together with him. That's not the problem." "Your parents know you're gay?" I asked. "What is the problem?" "Ash is very alpha possessive," Derrik said, rubbing his lower arm. "That's why he's the ex?" I asked. "We broke up," Derrik said. "Or simply stated, I dumped him, but he is the stalker sort." "What do you mean?" I asked. Derrik ran a hand through his blonde hair. His wrist held the darker tinge of a bruise, as if somebody had grabbed him, hard. Derrik noticed the way my eyes followed his wrist and quickly hid it under the table. He looked directly at my eyes as he said, "I think he's treating it like it was another power play to make me do his bidding. He texted me yesterday and said that I can say sorry by buying tickets to the Golden Knights versus Maple Leaf game. Then he'll forgive me for acting like a brat. He's texted me 7 times today, asking me if I was ready to be forgiven." "He'll forgive you? What did you do?" "I know what the Golden Knights are, but what's a maple leaf?" I asked. For the first time, Derrik smiled. He had a beautiful smile that lit up his eyes. "You Americans don't know the important things. The Toronto Maple Leafs are Toronto's pro hockey team. It doesn't happen very often, but the Toronto Maple Leafs are coming down to Vegas. That's how Ash and I met, up in Toronto, going to a Maple Leafs hockey game. I like the game, a lot, but Ash is seriously obsessed. Almost every bobblehead, hockey puck, shirt, hoodie, and jacket he owns are the Golden Knight colors. You know, gold, gray, red, and black, and has the Knight logo on it. He even owns all their baseball caps, still wrapped in their original packaging." "I bet his place was a shrine," I said, only half serious. Derrik's easy manner and cute smile. I could fall for this guy. "It was, and 90% of the stuff was his," Derrik said. "Barely any room for me. The thing is, Ash must have called my folks, and they must have told him who I was staying with. That's why I'm here tonight. I didn't want to be home." "Ouch," I said. And then my phone rang. I checked the display and felt my stomach drop. It was Mom. Of all times for Mom to call, it had to be when I was meeting somebody. Somebody just my type. I did not hide my reaction very well, because Derrik took a sip of his beer and looked away. "Now is not a good time," I said, as soon as I answered the phone. Mom was as purposefully oblivious to subtle nuances as always, because she said, "Your dad told me you weren't coming home this weekend. I won't take no for an answer, so I've booked a ticket from Harry Reid International. That's what they call the Vegas airport. I'll text you the flight information. You leave tomorrow, and tomorrow night we'll be a family again." "Mom," I tried to interrupt, but Mom didn't even pause for a breath. At least Derrik pretended not to hear everything. I swear Mom was loud enough that everybody in the restaurant could hear her. "You don't have to worry about clothes. I've already purchased some very nice things you'll look wonderful in," Mom said. "Mom, listen," I said. But of course Mom didn't pause. "I've also arranged your dad's personal stylist to give you the once-over," Mom continued. "We need you looking your best for all the pictures." "Mom." Again she wouldn't stop talking. I looked at Derrik for help. Derrik smiled a wicked smile and whispered, "Tell her you are getting married." "Mom," I groaned. "I'm with a friend. Can I bring them?" "No," Mom yelled. I pulled the phone away from my ear and grimaced. Derrik glanced at me and winced. Mom took an exasperated inhale, then exhaled and said, "Honey, don't be mad. I only want my baby boy, not anybody else. This is just for family, and only family, not your little friend. Now you catch the flight tomorrow, and I'll see you tomorrow night, sweetie." Manipulation at its best. I had to shout to interrupt her. "Fine, I'll come. I'm in Vegas. The soonest I can be there is 3 or 4 days." "But," she protested. The alcohol must have made me a little braver, or maybe sitting here with Derrik did, because I said, "Take it or leave it." Another pause. "Whatever." The call ended before I could say anything else. I sighed. My parents had money and felt entitled to always win. They didn't realize that I had money of my own, or a life of my own. "Sorry you had to hear that," I said. "I get the feeling you never told your parents you're gay. Or bi?" he asked. "Gay, and no, I didn't. If I do go," I said. "Well, I don't stand a chance. They demand their son act a certain way, dress a certain way, go to the right schools. I hate it. They tag team like you wouldn't believe." "What if you had backup?" he asked, smiling a little. 2 against 2. "What do you mean?" I asked, putting my phone away. Then jokingly added, "Do you want to come along and play boyfriend?" His little smile turned into a soft chuckle, and he said, "I need to get away from Nevada and Ash and figure out my life. Maybe you could drop me off to my parents afterwards if you don't mind making a huge detour. This would be the craziest thing I've ever done. But I'll pretend to be your boyfriend, and I'll even help pay for gas." I must be insane. Because, what the hey, let's do it. I met Derrik for breakfast while we planned the trip. Wow, I'd be putting a lot of miles on my Kawasaki. It would also let me do a bit of computer work, like take care of some website business for the online collectible store, and my portfolio. After breakfast, we packed the bike, a small duffel for each of us, which we crammed into the saddlebags. It's amazing how much those hold. After breakfast, we packed the pipe. For some reason, Derrik and I were comfortable with each other. We could talk about anything, laugh together, and we shared motel rooms, sometimes a bed. Don't worry, it was G-rated. I told him all about the online business I worked with, even taught him to ride my Kawasaki. Derrik told me about Canada and hockey. He had played hockey back in high school. If we had time, we could have stopped and toured the country. I couldn't help it. We'd only known each other for a few days, but I really liked this guy. Too bad we lived in worlds so far apart. 3 days later, as we finally crossed the border into Connecticut, guess what greeted us? A large billboard with the large smiling face of Arthur Tollum running for governor. My dad. Running for office. Funny. Dad had never run for any office before, not even mayor. He never even mentioned it on the phone. We rode the last few miles through the cool air, making us even colder as we snuggled together. Having Derrik holding me made the trip worthwhile, and I enjoyed the long ride to my folks' custom-built manor, Whitby Hall. Whitby Hall is roughly halfway between Windsor and Enfield, just outside of a small town called Watson Springs. Then I saw my dad's gigantic smiling face leering down at me at another billboard, and another, and another. What was I getting myself into? My neck tensed. Mom demanded dinner be at 6:30 every night. It was 8 o'clock right now. Another thing she would be mad at me about. As we rode through the gate and down the half-mile drive, a golf cart approached us. One of my dad's many security officers. I recognized her immediately, a middle-aged woman who kept in shape. She must have recognized my cycle because she waved for us to pull over. Even before I had taken my helmet off and dismounted, she said, "Rodney, it's good to see you again. I am glad you're home. But Mrs. Tollum never said there would be two." She climbed out of the golf cart and gave me a tight hug. "Hiya, Karen. This is Derrik," I said. Let the fireworks begin. She gave Derrik a quick hug and said, "Welcome to the madhouse. I'm Karen. I babysat Rodney over 10 years ago." "Nice to meet you. I'm the boyfriend," Derrik said, winking at me. And suddenly, I had come out. Okay, get this. A few months ago, I would have been embarrassed, self-conscious, afraid of being rejected. Now, Derrik made me proud. Something warm filled my heart. Was I falling for this guy? I smiled and took Derrik's hand. Could he feel how fast my heart beat? "Boyfriend? Congratulations." Karen's eyebrows shot up and she said, "Learn something new every day. Your parents weren't expecting a +1. Do they know you're gay?" "No," I said. "You don't care?" course not. If he makes you happy, I'm happy. But you will let me take you two out to coffee, and you'll tell me the whole story, she said. Let me tell my parents first, I said. Karen frowned slightly and said, I hope it goes well. It's good to see both of you. Allow me to call ahead and let the house know you're on your way. You do know there is a press conference tonight. Dad never did like surprises. My parents didn't like things they didn't control. The nerves hit bad. I should never have come. When Karen was out of earshot, I asked Derrik, what do we do when things get weird? I get the feeling things are already weird, Derrik said. Your dad is running for office. Karen put her phone away and walked towards us, her face grim. Because of all the press, your mom and dad only want family. No one else. I'm sorry. It felt as if someone had slapped me. The anxiety wedged in my stomach. What if Derrik had been my real boyfriend? What would I have done? I leaned into Derrik and whispered, Things are weird. What do I do? Show some spine and have some fun, whispered Derrik. Karen, I said, trying to hide the panic, would you escort us to my parents' place? We've been on the road for 3 days and need a place to rest and grab some food. But, Karen said, but did I detect a slight smile as she answered? Very good, sir. Guess we were stuck here for the weekend. Compared to the heat of Vegas, Connecticut air felt like stepping into an air-conditioned chocolate store. A September evening in Connecticut is cool compared to Vegas. We followed the golf cart down the long, winding road that led to Whitby Hall, a home designed by my dad. It was as modern as it could be. Dad had made sure it had every electronic device known to man. The house's IQ beat mine by at least 50 points. Whitby Hall was so big that each wing had its own electric bill. Whitby Hall also sat on a huge amount of real estate, with the standard pool, jacuzzi, tennis courts, basketball court, formal rose garden, whatever my parents wanted. The taxes on that property cost more than the gross domestic product of some countries. Told you my folks were rich. Several cars and a van were parked in the front of the manor. Reporters and news crews circled around them. My shoulders tensed. Derrik held me a little tighter. As we pulled up to the manor, the butler, Mr. Wilson, came out. Before we got off the motorcycle, he came down and said, Master Rodney, your parents don't think it appropriate to have friends over at this time. Derrik is my boyfriend, I said. It's nice to meet you, Derrik said, offering his hand to Mr. Wilson. A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Wilson said. I could have commented on the weather for all the reaction I got. On account of all the guests, Mr. Tolan requests you use the servant entrance. I would recommend that you freshen up before joining your parents. We rode around to the rear of the house. Was this only a coincidence? Me going to the servant's entrance? Why did it feel planned? The servant entrance had space for 5 cars. All 5 were full. I pulled my motorcycle off to the side. It was a small plain door back here, compared to the others. Waiting for us were the chef, Saul, and the downstairs maid, Helen, all dressed in crisply pressed uniforms. Mom liked everything prim and formal. She also referred to everyone as staff, preferring the non-generic term, so she didn't have to deal with normal people. Then Mom walked out the door, rockin' like she was 40. Long dark hair with blonde highlights, a face painted with enough makeup to fake the natural look, and a form-fitting turquoise dress to show off the time she spent in her personal gym. None of that mattered to me. What did matter were all the times Mom missed my baseball games, because she had her stressful charity work and needed her spa days. She even missed my high school science fair because she was on a retreat in the Bahamas. Mom was Mom. Hard to believe that she was 61. And Dad, he always claimed long hours at work. as an excuse for not taking an interest. Mom and Dad picked out the schools I went to. Mom and Dad picked out my friends. Mom and Dad picked out my dates. Mom and Dad picked out my clothes. I could only invite acceptable people over. Mom and Dad made sure I played baseball in the private high school, just like Dad did. They vetoed the college I wanted to attend, California Institute of the Arts, and made me attend Dad's alma mater, Trinity College. I wanted to study art. They made me study business. However, I ran away from that life and chose to ride into the open road and away from Whitby Hall, away from them. I like to pretend that I didn't hold on to the bitterness, but that would be a lie. On impulse, I took hold of Derrik's hand and helped him off the motorcycle. I didn't let go, but I whispered, "I'm glad you're here." He squeezed my hand. Could he guess what was going on in my head right now? As Helen came forward, I said, "We have a duffel each, and we'll be staying in my old room." Right now was as good a time to come out as any. My heart pumping a super fast beat, and in front of everyone, I leaned over and kissed Derrik. He kissed back. Our first kiss. Oh God, I enjoyed this. We connected. Warm lips pressed against mine, the feel of his breath on my face, the way his arms held me. A part of me heard somebody call my name, but it seemed so far away. Something opened up inside me. People talk about fireworks when they kissed. I never believed it, never having experienced it. I inhaled slightly, shivering. We broke apart and looked into each other's eyes. His eyes were moist, mine too. "Wow," he softly said. My hand caressed his cheek. Something inside me ached. Was this love? Did Derrik feel something too? Derrik leaned in and kissed me, a long, deep kiss that hinted of passion in the near future. "Wow," I whispered back, barely holding back a smile. "Young love is so cute," Helen said, eyes beaming. Behind us, Saul loudly cleared his throat and with a completely stoic face said, "Good to have you home, Rodney. New boyfriend, I take it?" "Derrik, we've been dating for 2 months." Derrik spoke out before anyone else could. 2 months of heaven," I said. We broke apart when Mom loudly coughed. "You were supposed to be here in time to get ready, and we held dinner for you. Now everyone won't get to eat. The reporters are arriving now." I only nodded. "Rodney, Derrik, if you'll come with me," Helen quietly said, glancing back at the doorway, "I'll escort you to your room. I'm sure you'd like to freshen up." "I've made one of Rodney's favorites," Saul, the chef, said. "It won't be an inconvenience?" Derrik asked. "Grilled Gouda on ciabatta buns and homemade tomato soup using an heirloom variety of San Marzano tomatoes?" Chef Saul smiled. "It won't be a problem at all. Excuse me while I get things ready." With a nod at us, Saul walked back into the manor. Mom had to have seen Derrik and me kiss. She had the look of someone who had eaten too many lemons. Her lips pursed together, her eyes narrowed, and she crossed her arms. Her smile seemed innocent, but I knew better, because she said, "As I told Karen, this weekend is just for family." Helen tried to make it sound innocent as she said, "It's just one more, ma'am." "What's the problem?" I asked. "Seriously, you're gay," Mom sneered. "Always the troublemaker. You two won't be sleeping in the same room. In fact, I don't want Derrik in my house." "Why?" I asked. Mom counted on her fingers. 1, we don't have a room prepared for him. God, we can't have anybody seeing you two together. 2, look at what you're wearing. Nobody would want to be seen with you. Goodness, I arranged a tux for you, and I've selected what you will wear when we go to church. You won't have time for a boyfriend. Get rid of him. 3, You've kept Mrs. Clemens waiting. You need a stylist in the worst way. 4. Besides, think of all the extra work you'll cause the chef." That's not what Saul said, I thought, but simply said, "Then we'll go out. Derrik, you've got to try Antonio's Pizza Supreme. Karen, is the old pizza place still open?" "Yes, sir," she said. "Rodney Xavier Tollum," Mom sneered. Derrik snorted. Helen and Karen carefully had no expression. "Did I detect a note of disrespect?" Mom said to me. The servants suddenly stiffened. I know Mom's moods. Inside, she was furious I had defied her. Her eyes chilled my soul, like ice. The old terror of my parents surfaced. I clutched Derrik's hand. I should never have come. I should never have come out. I kissed Derrik, took his arm, and led him into the manor in direct defiance of Mom. Mom wasn't done. She blocked the way, as if life couldn't get any worse. "Rodney, are you stupid? I said you two will not be sharing a room, not in my house, and he will not be allowed into my house. I do not approve of your torrid relationship. Did you find this lowlife walking the streets? Must you stoop so low?" "Give us a break, Mom. We've been traveling for days," I said. Mom glared. She didn't move. She remained in the doorway. The servants stopped moving. I began sweating. My back stiffened. "Your son is gay and has a gay lover," a new voice said. "Why do the simple things always get complicated?" The voice belonged to a woman in a stylish pink silk blouse and white slacks and pink heels, 3 inches high, and wearing a tousled bob haircut. "It's not the demographic we are targeting. Appearances mean everything." "Believe me, we didn't know," came a second voice. Dad's. "Rodney, you are my son, and you will do as we expect. We know what is best for the family, and for you." Dad joined us, wearing an impeccably tailored black suit, power red tie, and a pin of the U.S. flag on his left lapel. His hair should be mostly gray, or at least speckled black and white, but it was dyed dark brown. He wore makeup as if expecting to be on TV. Let the tag team begin, I thought. Derrik held my hand and didn't let go. Helen and Karen remained frozen. Now comes the part when I can never stand up to my parents. Now comes the part when I bow down. I submit to their authority. A little bit of fear ran up and down my spine. My hands chilled, and I suppressed a shiver. I feared my parents. I shook inside, unable to speak. God, what is wrong with me? Are other people as afraid of their parents as I am? "Don't you understand? I love Rodney," Derrik said. "I love being with him, because we have fun together. We just traveled the United States together." Mom gave me her best wounded look. Pouting eyes, downturned mouth, wringing hands. She even dabbed at a non-existent tear. "You know I disapprove of that bike. I disapprove of your lifestyle choice, and I don't want Derrik in my house." Oh God, I've given Mom something else to judge me about. I still couldn't say anything. The fear lodged itself in my stomach. I should never have come home. I should never have come out, but I was too scared to figure out what to do. Time to run, like always. The strange woman looked at her phone and said, "Make this fast. Mrs. Clemens is waiting, and the first reporter is taking their seat." Mrs. Clemens, Dad's stylist. Mrs. Clemens, Dad's stylist. "Derrik," I said, trying to sound calm, "let's go up to my room." The stranger softly said, "Mr. Tollum, choose your demographic. I predict this state is about to have a gubernatorial upset, and you'll need all the votes you can get to make that happen. The LGBTQ voting bloc isn't that big compared to other voting blocs. You have better options, and they require the appearance of a traditional nuclear family to gain the most approval." "Rodney, don't you understand?" Dad said, his voice carefully neutral. "We only want you here for photos, not your boyfriend. Don't be difficult." "Who's this, Dad?" I asked, nodding at the strange woman. Dad glanced at the mystery woman and said, "Sybil, my public relations advisor. She's been toning up my campaign so that I now have a 10-point lead in the polls." "The pieces all fit," I said, my heart pounding and my brain finally working. "Time to pretend we are a happy family. You only want me here so we can make nice with the reporters, and you can make points with the voters." Everybody paused, but it was Mom who broke the silence. She still blocked the way. "You'll have to excuse my son. He's in his rebellious phase. You only have to look at his motorcycle and his clothes. We're hoping he'll grow up to be reasonable." Backhand gaslighting? Seriously, Mom? Once again, I'm glad I had my Kawasaki. That's when another van drove in. An off-white TV van with satellite dish sporting the logo of some TV network. A man drove, but a woman climbed out carrying both a purse and a huge, bulging tote. Was she carrying photography equipment? And a laptop, maybe? With the way she was dressed, she must be here to interview my dad. I didn't recognize her. Some other people got out dressed in T-shirts and shorts. Her crew, maybe? Mom and Dad immediately went into smile for the camera mode. "Get me out of here," I whispered. "Time to go to Canada. Let's go visit my family," Derrik whispered. I gave him a nod and a half smile and said, "Agreed." Still holding Derrik's hand, I picked up my bag, he his, and we walked to my motorcycle. My parents were too busy dealing with the reporter to notice. We snuck away. As soon as we stowed our gear and put on our helmets, we drove away. Mr. Wilson simply stared at us and nodded. We had nearly gotten to the end of the drive when we had to wait for an incoming car. A well-dressed man wearing all gray and driving a gray Ford pulled into the long drive, and when he stopped by us, he asked, "Name's Howie Street. Men's Quarterly. Is this the Tulum residence? I'm not from these parts." "Yes, sir," Derrik said. "Just keep following the drive." "Thanks," Howie said. His eyes flickered to the casual way Derrik held my hand. "Wait. I recognize you. Rodney Tulum, only son of the Tulum family. You disappeared almost a year ago. Who's this?" "Derrik. Long story," I said. Speaking with the reporter could cause a lot of problems for my parents. I just wanted to leave. "Dad and Mom are waiting for you up at the house." Unfortunately, the golf cart pulled up in back of us. Sybil at the wheel. It had barely stopped when Mom stepped out, followed by Sybil. I groaned. Derrik rolled his eyes. Howie, the reporter, narrowed his eyes. With a well-practiced smile, the first thing Mom said was to the reporter, "My husband is waiting for you up at the house. Why don't you go up and wait for us?" After the reporter had driven out of earshot, Mom and Sybil walked towards us. You know that feeling when you're called into the principal's office? Why did this feel like an intervention? Derrik smiled and said, "Chill, boyfriend. Too bad we don't have popcorn." I loved it when he wrapped his arms around me. Sybil and Mom approached. Mom looked like a python ready to strike. I snickered, trying to relax. "Here to read me my rights, Mom?" "Let me handle this," Sybil softly said to Mom, then turned to Derrik and me. "My name is Sybil States, your dad's publicity consultant. I think we got off to a bad start. Rodney, Derrik, we need to talk." "This is only for family," Mom said, her practiced smile as snarky as ever. I glanced at Derrik. He only shrugged. I took his hand and stared at Mom. When neither Derrik or I said anything, or climbed off the cycle, Sybil continued, "Rodney, I will be honest. Your parents never mentioned that you were gay or had a boyfriend." "That's the problem?" I asked. "This late in the campaign, it is a major problem." Sybil sighed as if she had a headache. "Let me explain. We are presenting your father as a man of traditional values, so he'll appeal to the traditional crowd. A staunchly religious, all-American family man, A self-made man who achieved extreme wealth at a young age. All-American dream kind of stuff. The perfect family. We're aiming the campaign at conservative people with traditional values and old money. It's a very large and very powerful voting bloc, and one of the major campaign contributors will not be part of any candidate who is in favor of anything LGBTQ, which wasn't an issue until you showed up with a boyfriend. So, Derrik said. Which comes down to your part, Rodney, Sybil said. We have arranged for an actress to play your girlfriend. We have selected the parts of your life that corresponds to the narrative we want to sell. And quite frankly, we need you to play along. Why don't they hire somebody? Derrik muttered. Sybil must have thought Derrik serious because she said, Rodney, all the voters have to do is Google you to find your picture, so it has to be you. If I had been there alone, I would have given in. What if Derrik had been my real boyfriend? Even though he wasn't a real boyfriend, something inside me wanted to protect Derrik. Let me get this straight, I said, emphasizing the word straight. All I have to do is lie, for Dad, then live a lie to support his lie, and convince my boyfriend to go along with the lie. But it's not just any lie. You're asking me to compromise who I am. What happens when people find out? Derrik asked. Don't you want to help your dad get elected? Sybil said. The photographer is already here, and the interviewer, and a lot of reporters, as is the stylist, and the actress who'll play your girlfriend. The reporters are already arriving, Mom said. Chop, chop, we need to hurry. I glanced at Derrik and said, What's the best route to get to your parents? He pulled his phone out and typed something. Sybil whispered something to Mom. I started the cycle. Take a left right after the gate, Derrik said. Mom screamed, You selfish brat, I should have put you up for adoption. You'll ruin everything. That stung. I tensed. Derrik held me. Rodney, Derrik, listen to me. You can't leave, Sybil said. One reporter has already seen you, and if you leave, they'll ask questions. It will be a public relations disaster. Frozen? I didn't know what to think. I didn't like how I felt. Something felt cold inside me, and sad. You want to use me, I said, and you want my fiancé to take a hike. You're done controlling me, Mom. Derrik came to my rescue when he said, Mrs. Tollem, now that we know how you really feel, give us one good reason why we would want to stick around. You have 10 seconds. Mom and Sybil looked at each other for 1 second. Mom quickly muttered, I didn't mean that. Wrong answer, I said. It hadn't been 10 seconds, but I still drove off. Even holding 2 people and our gear, there was no way the golf cart could keep up with my Kawasaki. We'd been riding for days and needed a break. We found a motel not too far away and ordered takeout Chinese. Beef chow mein for me, mushu pork for Derrik, accompanied with tons of ham-fried rice and 3 pot stickers each, and we picked up a 6-pack to wash it down with. The Salt Air Motel had only a few rooms available. All were single bed. We didn't care. We were both exhausted. Derrik grabbed a shower first, then me. Derrik changed into a white muscle wife beater. Derrik changed into a white muscle wife beater and a pair of blue maple leaf shorts with logo, while I wore a scarlet t-shirt, the singer of course, and black shorts. We ate, talked, binge-watched Friends episodes, and had fun relaxing together. I loved being with this man. Was it too soon to fall in love? Did he feel the same way? Probably not. Would he mind if I kissed him again? We were drowsing off to the sounds of the television when somebody knocked on our door. I checked the time. 10:30? Leery of answering the door, I walked over to it and said, Yes? It's me, Karen. I think we should talk. Let's go get that coffee. Sybil is with me. Not tonight, I said. We have a long ride ahead of us tomorrow, so good night. Wait, it's an emergency, Sybil said. My heart began to panic. An accident? A heart attack? Dad often liked to drive. Had he had an accident? Maybe Mom fell down the stairs. I glanced back at Derrik. He shrugged, nodded. I opened the door. Both Sybil and Karen came in. By the look in Sybil's eyes, she must have noticed the single bed, Derrik laying in it already, and my obvious spot next to him. "Is Dad okay?" I asked. Karen stepped next to me and said, "Derrik, Rodney, I'm sorry about this. I didn't think we should disturb you, but your dad insisted." "Be quiet, Karen," Sybil said. "Let me handle this." Derrik got up and took my hand. "Whatever it is, love, I'm by your side." It might not be a real relationship, but I'm glad he was here. I leaned in and kissed him. "How did you find us?" Derrik said. "We figured you'd find a motel, and your bike is parked out front of your room," Karen said. "Rodney, it is your dad," Sybil said, losing patience, "and he fired Mrs. Clemens on the spot." That surprised me. I barely even knew Mrs. Clemens. Why did my dad's personal groomer have to do with anything? Did she stab him with a hot curling iron or something? "Did she give him pink hair?" Derrik said. Derrik and I sat on the bed. "What happened?" I asked. After the press conference, it was disastrous. Even though we had the woman who was to play your girlfriend sitting with us, one reporter asked your dad about his relationship with his gay son and his boyfriend. It caused an uproar. Seems Mrs. Clemens had heard everything we had said outside and gossiped with reporters. Derrik almost laughed, but I managed to keep a straight face. "Take this serious, boys," Karen said, carefully keeping from smiling. Sybil crossed her arms and said, "The main interviewer, still rolling, asked your father his stance about LGBTQ issues, because there are 3 bills that come to mind involving adoption and spousal benefits. Connecticut is very friendly to the LGBTQ community, and we'd hope to avoid any controversy." "I've tried to tell my parents for years," I said. "We only needed a traditional family," Sybil said, "or that you should pretend you were traditional. Politics is all about appearance. We could have avoided this if you had played along. Your dad is right. You just want to be difficult." "So what do you want us to do?" Derrik asked. This whole affair disgusted me. I'd already made up my mind on what to do. "First," Sybil said, "come with me back to Whitby Hall so we can figure out how to avoid this nightmare. The LGBTQ voting bloc isn't very big, so I think we can work around it. Second, the presence of your boyfriend will undo all our work. He can stay in the motel until this is over. Third—" She droned on. I squeezed Derrik's hand and mouthed the words, "Let's leave." He nodded. Most of our things remained in the saddlebags. We got up, picked up our stuff, and packed the cycle. Karen said nothing. "Are you leaving?" Sybil yelled. "You can't leave. It's your fault that we are in such desperate situations." We ignored her. As we climbed on the motorcycle and adjusted our helmets, Karen said, "I'm sorry about all of this." "Me too," I said back. "Don't you love your parents?" Sybil said. "They need help." "Rodney tried to, but that dream was shattered," Derrik said, and we rode off. Toronto was 500 miles and some change, at least 8 hours. I needed sleep, but was too pumped up with adrenaline to relax now. In our night gear, we drove away. Karen and Sybil watched us. Karen looked grim. Sybil pulled out her phone. They stood there, and then we turned the corner, and they were out of sight. I love riding the open road, love the feel of the wind, love the look of the night. I drove all night, and we saw the sunrise. It was about 7 in the morning when we pulled into Toronto. Derrik guided me to Bedford Park and to his home. Bedford Park is an older neighborhood. Old houses mingled with new. We rode up to his house, a 50-year-old 2-story with slanted roof near a large park. Though early, the neighborhood had risen. It was time to get the kids off to school so the parents could go to work. We pulled into a short drive, and I parked to the side so as not to block the 2-car garage. As I shut down the engine and pulled my helmet off, an older man descended from the short case that led to the front porch. He wore jeans and a green flannel shirt. After the way my parents had reacted to me, I expected him to have a shotgun. He stood at the bottom of the steps and stared at us. Who is making all this noise? Derrik took off his helmet, ran his hand through his hair and said, "Hi, Dad. Surprise! Guess who came for a visit?" "Sophie, you won't believe who's out here," Derrik's dad yelled. Derrik climbed off the bike and ran to his dad and hugged him. His dad did the same. Smiling, they must not have seen each other for months. A woman came out, wearing an apron over a white blouse and green slacks. She saw Derrik and joined in the hug. A sudden sadness filled me. My parents had never reacted to me like that. When was the last time I'd been hugged by them? Not for a while. A long, long while. I turned away to give them a little privacy, and so nobody could see the pain in my eyes. The three of them spoke excitedly while I unpacked the saddlebags. His parents gave him freedom to be himself. Carrying the saddlebags with me, I stopped near Derrik and waited. It only took a moment before his mom noticed me and said, "Derrik, you've brought a friend. Who's this?" "Rodney," I responded, and stifled a yawn. The constant driving had exhausted me, and I needed sleep. Derrik and I met down in Vegas. "He gave me a ride," Derrik said. "From Las Vegas? That's 2,300 miles. That's at the bottom of America," his dad said. "Ash said you disappeared, won't even answer his texts, said something about a fight and you were in the wrong and needed to apologize." Derrik glanced at me as if for permission before saying, "Like I told you, I dumped the jerk. Rodney and I are boyfriends now." His mom sighed. "We'll talk about this later. But let me warn you, Ash said he was driving up from the States." Derrik groaned. "Last thing I need is to see him. I hope you told him I wasn't around." "Tried to," his dad said. But Ash has selective hearing. He figures you probably came up here to avoid him." I rubbed Derrik's shoulders and said, "I don't know about you, but I need to get some sleep. Is there a motel close by?" "You're welcome to our couch," his dad said. Derrik laughed and said, "No way. My bed is big enough for two, and Ash has never been in it." His mom's jaw dropped. Her eyes shot wide open, and she said, "How serious are you two?" "Serious enough, Mom," Derrik said. He took my hand and led me inside. "Why don't you two get cleaned up and I'll make some breakfast," his dad said. "I have a feeling we have a lot to talk about." And the conversation had to wait. I sat down on the bed, and the next thing I knew, it was 2 in the afternoon. The most amazing experience about this trip happened then. Derrik slept next to me. It wasn't a big deal. We'd slept in the same bed for a lot of the trip. Nothing happened because we didn't know each other. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, gently highlighting the lightly snoring Derrik, the soft rhythm of his chest rising and falling, the rumpled bed hair. Though we had kicked our shoes off, neither one of us had changed out of our clothes. We just fell asleep on top of the bed. Somebody had placed a brown and gold-striped comforter over us and left a note on the nightstand that a picture of iced tea waited for us in the fridge. The room was casual, but it did have a set of rainbow beads over the closet. I propped my head on my elbow and looked about. Several folded towels sat on a chair, and a plate held 4 croissants and some butter. It made me smile. They tried to make me feel welcome even though I was unconscious. The quiet gave me a chance to think about the trip, about the stranger I had rode with, my parents, and now I was in Canada. I relaxed, rolled over, and stared at the ceiling. A poster of some handsome actor was above the bed. My parents would have been mortified if I had done something like that. I glanced at Derrik, my eyes gently tracing the profile of his face. When had love started? 3 days of traveling together, talking about everything, letting a rapport build naturally. I loved this man. Did he love me? Did I dare tell him how I felt? He'd think me weird, or a stalker, or something. Slowly, he rolled over and looked at me. Our eyes met. Something connected on a deep level. Love at first sight is a myth, right? Love takes months to grow, right? Somehow, my right hand found his left hand. Our fingers interlaced. He gave me a gentle smile and said, "Your hair is a mess." "So is yours," I whispered. The kiss came like lightning. The fireworks exploded in my soul. "Rise and shine, sleepyheads. You ready for something to eat?" his mom said. The door to the hall was open, and she balanced 2 plates filled with cheesy noodles, a thick beef stew, and honey-glazed carrots. His dad entered, carrying a tray with 4 steaming mugs of vanilla coffee. "We need to talk," he said. The end of part 1. Part 2 will be up as soon as I have it written. I'm a little slower at writing these days, so it might be a week or 2. Anyway, my name is Gio, and thank you for supporting me, and thank you for all your prayers and for all the kind words and comments. I appreciate it. To make it simple, back in June I had a stroke, and I was in the nursing home and ICUs and emergency rooms for pretty much most of the summer. Maybe I'll go into detail about it sometime, but it took me a while to get back to normal. And I'm still not back to normal, but writing is great therapy, and it's something I've always loved, so I'm sorry if this story seems a little different. It's taking me a little while to get back into the groove. I'll talk to you later. Peace.